right. Here we are. I don't know how much it shows, but hello everyone. I don't know when this thing kicks in, but hey, welcome to another Q&A session. I'm Shane Olson, as you know, and we have the wonderful I feel like a magician sometimes. I have my wonderful assistant Donna here with us today. Hey Donna, how's it going?
Hey, I'm here and I'm pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Woo!
Oh goodness. So how is everybody doing today? Hello. It looks like chat has been crazy busy. All this excitement about ZBrush 20,000. I'm going to say it like that. 20,021. 2021. And yeah, it's been really super exciting. There's a lot of new stuff in there, particularly cloth. I want to show you guys. So, but first, I have a handful of models that I want to get through. I can't go long with them today. I'm just going to kind of give some pointers and some feedback the best that I can. I'm going to try and hit an hour with these. And then I'm going to get into ZBrush 2021 and we're going to talk about all the new stuff. So super exciting. Also, if you haven't grabbed the user interface yet, I've just uploaded it in the course. It's in the download section. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's a download. I should just show you guys. Let's take a little trip. Okay, so if I go to the course and log in, okay, go to my library. I still have all the old stuff. Okay, so you won't see any of this stuff, but Character Workshop 1.5, you go to that, and we are here, and there's my face, but 3D Character Workshop downloads right here under Welcome. Now there's a video. I put this video up here, and is this the wrong one? I can't remember. I just did it this morning. I hope I saved it. There it is right there. 3D Character Workshop 2021 right here. This is the UI. So go to this page and grab it and install it. I haven't done much to it, but I will show you what I have done. So this should look like, this is a new video. Okay, it looks like an older video, but this is a new video just talking about how to install the new brushes. Okay. Also, I wanted to ask you guys, how is my lip sync with the audio? Because I changed my camera. It's now shooting in 4K. That's why I look this more crisp, I guess, than I have before, because I kind of changed some camera settings and some lighting, but it could possibly have messed up the delay. So my voice might not be exactly lining up, and I want to know that before I live stream with Pixelogic. So does it look good? All right, awesome. That is good to hear. Okay, so let's jump into things. So this first one I have, this is for Andreas Witter with this Elven Monk. I hope I'm saying your name right, Andreas. Okay, so basically he was wondering about, proportions and things like that. Let me see exactly. What do you say the overall proportions, especially in face? So this one was submitted like 2 weeks ago during our last Q&A session. And the reason I didn't get to it is because I can't take submissions the day of or even the previous day, like the day before, because I get overwhelmed with too many of them. So the cutoff day is a day before I go live, okay? So I believe there might have been one today that came in too late. But I will get to it, but maybe not till the next Q&A session. So this one was from the week prior, and I just wanted to talk about it really quick. The hands are looking really nice. I love the block out, and just first glance, there are a few tiny little things that I would change, but first glance, it's really nice as far as the silhouette and the plane changes on here. Super nice. And let me get my pen here. And even the hip transition to here. What I would do is make him a little more square through the hips. See how it cuts in really tight right here? I might loosen this up and make it more square just a bit and bring this in and make him a little bit more V-shaped. I mean, I like the shapes that you have, but just to make him more of a male looking character, that's what I would do, is just barely pull that out. But I really like this chest from the side. Maybe pull it in slightly so it's not so big of a change. And you have his arms on the back, which is really nice, like back here. And the chest coming off looks awesome. Be careful of this transition going from the tummy into the pelvis. So you might want to just straighten that out. Like, you know, don't have it go too far in, or it will look a bit feminine. Yeah. So just watch your transitions. Okay. And as far as the face, though, the face. What I would do with this face, I love the shapes you have going, because this guy is very interesting, and I would say difficult to hit. All right. Okay, let's see. And I'm sorry I pay attention to chat less because I have Donna to guide me here. how's chat looking, Donna? Anything missing?
Well, you're not missing anything. We're being quite abusive, really. So
Okay.
I'd leave us to it.
Okay, nice. Okay, so what we have is this. I love this shape that cuts from the nose wings out here and cuts down. And this is a very interesting head, and it's going to be kind of difficult to make appealing. It only kind of looks appealing from this angle, and when you go to turn it, it's going to be difficult to make look appealing. But that being said, you've done a good job with it. So shrink this back down, and I would make these eyes slightly larger, because they're really tight in his head. Let's see what they look like. Yeah, they're pretty small. So what I would do is I would make them larger inside of his head. And how you can do that easily, well, semi-easily, is by clicking the gizmo, holding down Alt, and just tapping on the surface of the eye, where it makes it easier to scale the eye up from the front of the center of the eye opening than it does putting the gizmo in the center of the eyeball itself. That way, when you scale it, it kind of, let me turn on local symmetry. When you scale it, it will scale from that point back into his head. Okay, and it's okay to overlap the eyeballs inside the head. I get that question a lot, and with stylized characters, it is okay to do that. Okay, so I would make them much larger. That helps with the appeal, and you can see how large his eyes are in his head. They are a little close together, so I would just kind of, from this angle, just pull them apart a bit. And you can do that with the eye opening, not necessarily, I'm not talking about the eyeball itself in the head. I'm just talking about the opening. Okay, so get it like this and just make that opening larger overall, and it will help with the appeal. Okay, and then his lips are looking very kind of for lack of a term, he's looking very kissy face, like you know. So I would pull this section back. I know his nose is cutting really deep down into his face, but to offset that, or just kind of pull his lips inward a bit. Okay. And then just polish them flat. Yeah, like I said, this is a really difficult model to do here. Let's see, I gotta turn off spotlight projection. Why isn't that working? Okay, so you can just kind of polish these lips down and make them more subtle. Just a line cutting his face. Okay, is there a question from Thomas?
There is. There's quite a long question from Thomas.
Okay. Let's hear it.
He's doing this on purpose, though.
Okay.
Okay, right, here we go. Get ready for this.
All right, bring it.
When doing retopology for a character,
Yep.
would you match the shape more or try to do proper topology edge loops, even if they ignore the flow of the shapes? Like, when the character is a doll made out of patches, would you make the patches in the topology, or would you ignore them and just hope the normal map covers it? No real limit on polys.
Okay, I would. It's an easy answer for me. I would ignore them. Do not follow surface textures, surface geometry, anything with surface that falls under the term surface. You will not want to follow your topology along the surface. And the reason why is because, yes, your textures, your ambient occlusion maps, and your normal maps will take care of all of that. Okay, so the biggest rule to follow when you're doing retopology, a big question, like put it in writing above your desk or something, to ask yourself while you're doing topology is, does this affect the silhouette of the character? As I rotate the character, is whatever is on the surface, is this affecting the silhouette enough to warrant extra geometry? That's what you need to think about when you're doing retopology. If it doesn't, if it's a quilt, if it's a pattern across the surface, no, do not follow it at all. Okay, it's much better to have even, equal, even parallel with the world axis. It's better to have even geometry across the surface of the thing. Let the normal maps take care of it. Okay, that's a great question though. All right.
We do have one more.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Michael Carville.
Hey, Michael.
I found posing hands is a nightmare in my last sculpt. How do you deal with joints squishing or losing volume?
So that's a very interesting question. Without kind of getting in and posing one to show you how to do it. I believe, I'm trying to think if I posed Sirloin's hands or not. I think I posed Kate's hands, but what you'll want to do, or what I do typically, is I work from the first knuckle and then work my way down each knuckle after that. Meaning I'll pose either one finger at a time, starting with that first knuckle and then going down. Remember, I talked about posing being like thinking about a tree, and you're starting at the root or the base and working your way up the trunk all the way out to the leaves, and your fingers are the leaves, and that includes the joints. So you want to pose each joint. So starting with the pelvis, then going up the body, and then from the shoulders out to the limbs, and then the fingers. But what I'm trying to say is that also includes each knuckle of the finger going outwards. Okay. I need to turn off that screensaver. Every time I install a new version of ZBrush, the screensaver is back, and it's like interrupting cow. So anyway, what I will do is typically when I go to mask out a joint, I will blur it so it won't crunch in on itself like an elbow or a knee or a hip. Particularly the hips and shoulders, I will blur those out because of the rotation is so much greater. With a finger, it's just a hinge joint, so you only get one bend rotation. And what I will typically do is I will mask it off, but I will not blur it. I'll leave it kind of stiff and hard, and then I will bend the finger, and then I will sometimes I'll go back in there after I've bent the finger and re-inflate the area. And I will also, don't be afraid to use transpose, like moving it. You can rotate it and you can also move it. So don't be afraid of breaking the finger, just make sure it looks good. And then the other thing I always do is make sure if you're ever doing a fist or something like that, that your fingers do not have space in between them if your hand is closed. It's really difficult. I mean, try and do it. You can do it, but it's not natural. It's awkward to have space between those fingers unless it's very intentional, like you're dropping one of them. It's kind of harder when you're not holding on to something, but I would take your own reference, like ask somebody to hold an object for you and take some pictures of their hand holding that object if it's going to be, if it's a humanoid hand or something like that, and use that as reference if you're having troubles like that. So you can see this guy's hand right here in the concept. All of his fingers are mushed together. That's kind of a common new sculpting mistake, is to have a fist and have all this air in between the fingers, and it just looks awkward and gross and weird. So just make sure you actually close that fist tight. And like you said, if you're losing volume, just come back in and inflate it back together. And if you leave the mask sharp, it will help you get those nice creases when you bend the fingers that way. Okay, so I hope that helps. And you can see these three fingers are together, and this one's apart. It's kind of a nice hand pose thing to do, is to keep some together and some apart. But this is a good T pose hand. In a T pose, you want your fingers apart, because for rigging, you don't want to have your fingers touching. It's going to cause nightmares for the riggers. Okay. So anyway, I also just skinnied up this guy's head, like narrowed it a little bit. It was looking a bit wide. So I would even take it closer. And I don't know, and I hope that helps and that answers your question. So, hey, what's up, Peter? How you doing? Okay, so yeah, other than that, I think it's looking pretty good. Just keep going with this. I think you're doing a good job. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. This is Vinet's. Now Vinet, I think his machine went down yesterday or today, something like that. So I don't know if Vinet is here, but Vinet's been struggling with this a little bit, so I wanted to cover it somewhat. So the proportions on her, let me show you show you what he's trying to do. So he already did the dog. This is kind of like it's a Hallmark looking card thing, this thing, which is really nice. So making this girl. Now, there's a couple things with this girl. She's kind of hard to evaluate because she's kind of crumpled. She's down here with her knees in her hands, and she's in a crumpled pose. So it's kind of difficult to get the proportions on here. And the also just some of the proportions happening through here. Okay. And then the transition between the lower arm and the hand could be cleaner and smoother. And I would reduce the anatomy, any hints of anatomy in here, I would reduce down to the bare minimum, which you sort of have here. But I would take it even more with these legs. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so this is Sculptress Pro, and it looks like it is slow. So what is happening here? I was just looking to see if dynamic was turned on or something like that. This is getting up there in polygons. So what I'm going to do, what I would do, Vinet, to clean this up is I would put her head in a different subtool than her body, and I would cut it just below the neckline of this t-shirt. And that will help you, your performance of your machine. So I don't know if it's your performance. I don't know if this model actually killed it for you, but I can help you figure out how to optimize this scene. So we're going to hide this head and then each of these bits. Okay. And you can also, here I'm going to show you guys how to optimize a Sculptress Pro scene. I didn't show you that before. I should have. Okay. So, yeah, 12 million total polys. There's some stuff going on here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to split, let's see. Before I do that, I want to split the neck lower. So I'm going to take this. To make another poly group, all you have to do is mask it down below this neck. Just make sure you get all the polys that are right along the edge here. Then hit Control W to put the mask in its own poly group. And then we can hide it, okay? And I'm just going to put this whole thing in one poly group and this whole thing in one poly group. And then I'm going to split this. I'm going to just say split hidden. Okay, now they're in two separate poly groups. And now we can clean this body up by doing a Z-remesher. Okay, we're not going to keep groups. We're going to turn this up to 6. Hit Z-remesher and clean this up. So I'm going to show you how to clean up a Sculptress Pro head here in a minute. So if you ever find yourself digging yourself into a corner with too many polys when you're doing Sculptress Pro, ooh, that's weird. Okay. Gave me some weird. That's weird. Okay. That's kind of a weird edge it gave me here, but that's okay. Basically what I would do is do polish by features before I did what I just did. But you can see how kind of pinched the wrist is. So you can come in here and clean this up and smooth it out. So that's more of what I was talking about, and smooth out this hip area. Make it look more like she looks like she's 6 or something like that. So you can really diminish all of these details, and her bum is just kind of diminish that. That's way too much happening right there. Okay. All right, and then yeah, her toes compared to her hands and her feet, they're and her hands and feet feel very, very small. So I would just come in here and just make them larger. So you can just scale them up slightly to match. Just something like this, not too much. And the feet are better. They're quite long. So if you look at this and you look at her feet, they're quite long. I keep wanting to do the mask lasso and it's not working. Okay. So let's, if you want to shrink this down, what we need to do is line it up like this and just scale it like so. And there you go. That's, her feet match her proportions better there. And then I would shrink her legs. They're very tall. I think once you get her posed, that's when it's going to tell you, is when you get into pose, to see if their proportions are correct. So that's what I would do next, is kind of get her into pose and see. But other than that, it's not bad. Okay, so the head. Let's talk about this head. You have some, so this is 177,000 polys in here, or triangles, I should say. Okay, and it's very, very slow to move around. Okay, even on I have a pretty monstrous machine and it's still lagging. Okay, and it's because of Sculptress Pro. You don't want to have it go this deep into detail in these areas. Okay, you can clean these things up pretty easily. Looks like there's a lot of detail. It shouldn't be having this much of lag though. I don't know what's happening. Maybe. Okay, we're gonna try and clean this up. So how you clean up a Sculptress Pro model is you can use Decimation Master. So what is Decimation Master? I usually use Decimation Master to clean up models for 3D printing, because the smaller the file you can send to your printer, the faster the printer is going to be able to calculate what it needs to print, right? And some printers won't even hold big models, so you need to decimate them. And basically, decimation means to reduce with triangles. So since this is already made of triangles, we can clean this right up. And what's nice is, I think they added this to 2020 or the one before, but they have these decimation presets. Okay, so right now our head is 170,000. You can see that that's more in this area right here, between 150 and 250. So we can take this down to like 35,000. So let's go ahead and click on that button right there, and it's doing its processing symmetrically, and look at that. All of a sudden it is 35,000 active points, and it's now way more smooth. And what's nice about that is it will keep your edge detail. So if I turn this off, you can't tell. There's no difference between the two, right? Before and after, it looks exactly the same. It's just reduced. So if you're ever using Sculptress Pro and you're running into some lag issues, try and run Decimation Master. Try running one of these lower numbers on it and see if it speeds you up. And then you can just go right back into using Sculptress Pro to clean this stuff up. And since there's reduced triangles through here, it's easier to smooth out the warbles. So you can see that there's a bunch of warbles above her lip right here. Now that, just a warning, that will get rid of any coloring, any poly paint that you have, because you're essentially like Dynamesh, you're rebuilding the mesh. So it's gonna strip your mesh of all color. That's why it's just plain white again. But we can come in here and just kind of smooth out these triangles above her upper lip. Now again, her nose, look at her nose here and the nose you have, you're putting anatomy where there's really not anatomy yet. So, and her eye is just kind of a dot. I'm trying to remember who did a really effective, somebody on my Facebook feed did Doug recently. Doug from the old 90s Nickelodeon cartoon. And they did a really, really successful job with just having a little black sphere for the eye. And I think if I was to do that, that's kind of what I would do with her, is just a little black sphere for the eye and then overlap the eyelids on top of that. But I would really simplify this nose. I don't know that I would even do nostrils. Just do a very, very simplified nose. Simplify this mouth a bit and just, yeah, just simplify. I don't get caught up in anatomy too much. That's kind of it's a hard thing to do, you know, trying to, because you need to sculpt what you see, not what you know. That's like the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that every sculptor needs to learn, is to sculpt what you see, not what you know. And it's also in painting and drawing and all that kind of stuff. It's just a basic artistic skill that you need to teach yourself, is you know, just sculpt or draw what you see, not what you know. Okay, so that's kind of what I would do for the next steps. And you can see your cheek line too. See how this cheek line is diving down like this? Make sure it's coming from here and going across and back up, so get that nice full cheek. Okay, and then yeah, and just keep going on it, but it's looking pretty good. Good job. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one if that works. Any questions, Donna?
There are questions.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, the first one is from Kenya Marshall. Have you used T-pose with Z-rig on?
I have, and I do not recommend it because it's because of, well, one reason, it's not very editable. You cannot edit after the fact. So after I had a dragon that I rigged that way, so and he had big dragon wings and all sorts of stuff. And it's, once you get the rig in there, the only way you can influence whether the points follow the Z-sphere bones or not is by adding more Z-sphere bones, which will in turn make other ones have issues. So it's just it's way more effort than the end result. It seems like a shortcut, but it's not. So what I would rather do, you know, 100 or 99 times out of 100 is take it into, say, Maya or Blender or 3D Studio Max and rig it properly in there. Even if it's a crappy rigging job, if you're going to rig something up to pose it, I would just take it into another program that is actually built for rigging and do it in there. I wish it was, you know, I wish it was better. So it's just not there yet. Hey, what's up, Angelo? All right, I'll think about that. I'll think of a way to work it in. Okay, so go ahead. Is there another one?
Next question. Yeah,
Yep.
There's two more. So the next one is from Neil. Hi, Neil.
Hey, Neil.
Regular watcher is Neil.
Huh?
I have a question. If questions are being taken today, and I said yes, they are.
Uh-huh.
If I want to create a Disney Infinity style finger, what is a good way to square the fingertip off?
Just use your move brush and polish, like H polish works really well to just squish it. So this is Overton's dog. I just wanted to I wanted to open one more really quickly. So Saffron 6, this one was submitted last week, and I don't like to do two in succession because I want to give other people a chance to get their models reviewed. So I will typically not do two in a row. So this one was reviewed last Q&A session, so I'm not going to talk about it again this session. But so if you can go back and watch last week's Q&A session where I covered this model, so you can watch that, and I talked about all these things. So I apologize you weren't there for the live session, but the information is still there. So if you want to go back and watch that, you can. So I'm not skipping you like intentionally, but I kind of am because I already covered it, if that makes sense. So hopefully that's okay. So this is Overton's. Now Overton, he's been working on this. Hey Overton, how's it going? So this is a blockout pose, and his comment was, hey, I got the mouth wider, which is awesome. I love this pose because now you've integrated the neck better right here. This looks really nice. And now you can see the line of action. Let me get my handy dandy drawing tool out. And you can see that from the side. Look at this nice line of action going all the way through. It's super nice. So good job with that, Overton. And then the only other thing I have to say is the connection of the hips versus the back. So it looks like if he were to stand up, let's see. Let me just cut this. And I know this guy is pushed to the limit, so he's not really the optimal anatomy. But so usually a dog's rear and his hind legs are connected to his pelvis. So if his pelvis were here, let's say, okay, and it looks like this top leg is connected down like this. Does that make sense? So there's two pelvises happening basically. So and I don't know what to do exactly, but other than like I would try and merge those two things together. So here I'll draw one more color in the middle. Let me get a purple. Okay, so I would make the pelvis box somewhere in here, okay? And then I would bring, here, let me undo these. So in here, and then that way you can bring the leg up to match it better, and bring this bum up to because the butt should be something like this, right? And then it comes out and creates that foot. And then the tail comes off of that. Okay, if that makes sense. Like it's just it's like broken. There's like I said, the tail of two pelvises is what's happening in there. So other than that, that's what I would fix on this guy. But his feet are looking fantastic, and the pose and particularly his face. So from this direction, it's looking really nice. But I think this even the 2D sketch must be broken from this angle, because I'm sure you matched it fantastically. But to get it to spin around, that's probably why you're just going like, why can't I get his rear looking like it should? And that's why, is because it's just dropped too much. So anyway, yeah, good stuff. So Neil, back to your question about the fingers. Let me show you. So if I were to flatten this finger out right here, it's B for brush, H for H polish, and then P for polish. So BHP is the code to that brush. Okay, let me make sure I'm on here. And then you can just hit the front of that finger, and it will start kicking it back flat like this. See that? And then if you want to, what you can do is come into the pinch brush and just come around here and just kind of tighten up that edge to have the tip of the finger be squared off. That's usually what I would do. Something like that. You got to be careful. It's gonna bring the neighbors over too. That's what pinch brush does. Pulls everybody into the pool. Okay, so sorry I defiled your model with a flat finger, Overton, but I hope you don't mind. Okay, so hope that answered your question. Was there one more, Donna?
I think it's been answered in the chat, so you're all right. Carry on.
Okay.
We are at 25 minutes to the hour, by the way.
Oh, we're swimming through. Okay, great. Okay, here we go. Now this next one's large, but it's nice. Let's see. Takes a moment. So does anybody have any questions about what Decimation Master does and how it works?
That was actually the question that came up.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, let me go back and find it. Yeah. Oh, where's it gone?
Okay, while you're waiting, I just wanted to address Daniel Lazima. I'm not sure if you're here today, but you submitted your clown model. I think you sculpted that like a couple years ago. I just wanted to ask you what you wanted me to look at on it, because there's not a concept with it, so I don't know what to compare it to, and I don't know what the context of it is if you're wanting to change it. But that being said, Daniel, I would love to see some new stuff from you, some new models from you. So yeah, that's my go get 'em challenge to you is let's see some new stuff. I'd love to see it. All right. Go ahead.
That was a really nice segue there. That got me to the point of finding it. Right. This is from Creative Vape TV. Can you use Decimation Master to clean up Dynamesh?
Yes, actually you certainly can. Yep, but just know that it's going to clean it up in triangles, not quads. So Dynamesh is a mixture of quads and tris, but so I said Dynamesh, right? They have too many Dyna, won't you go, right? So they but decimation is triangles. So just keep that in mind. And when I would usually decimate, like I said, is when I would take a model to 3D print. That's when I would do it, is because that's the biggest reduction. But now that I'm doing this Sculptress Pro workflow, I will use decimation to clean that up because it's going from triangles to triangles. And also keep in mind that whenever you decimate a model to take to 3D printing, this is something I absolutely wish was in there when I was working on Disney Infinity, because Sculptress Pro works really, really well with triangles where nothing else does, right? So when if we were to go through and key our models and Dynamesh them together to get rid of all that interior geometry and then decimate them to send off to the printer, well, maybe there was a part, like a little hiccup or a hitch or something in there that we just didn't see. Well, we would have to go all the way back to pre-Dynamesh and fix that, whatever the problem was, re-Dynamesh it together, re-decimate it again, and then send it to the printer again. Well, now that we have Sculptress Pro, we can just hop in there and turn Sculptress Pro onto a brush and just go whoop and fix it without messing anything up. It's super duper nice, and it's fantastic to have in there. So, okay. That was yeah, it's a good question. Okay, let's see. So, sorry, 1 second. Okay, that's the next one. Did I miss one? Daniel. Oh, right here. Okay. I'm trying to think of where this one falls. Sorry, I'm trying to there's Overton's. Okay. So, I can't recall whose this one is. Anyway, did we pull this one up last Q&A?
We did pull that one up last Q&A.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So maybe that was maybe I just forgot to move it, but well, we're looking at it again. Okay, awesome model. All right, moving on. So I'm gonna load the next one. Now somebody sent me screenshots of their model rather than their model. So I'm gonna pull this down and talk about it. So that someone is Xiao. I'm not sure how to say your name. I apologize. Okay, but the question was, even after Z-remeshing, my models get wrinkled. Is there a way to make it smoother? Can I get pretty lines with pinch? Oh, I can't get pretty lines with pinch. Almost everything deforms. Okay, so the problem with this is I can't see what your mesh looks like underneath here, so I can't tell what is happening and what's making this. I can kind of guess. What I think is happening is you're trying to crease something that the mesh is not following along with. So you have two options at this point. I would say you could either do Sculptress Pro, because you're not going to run out of geometry and you can make everything be as creased as you want with Sculptress Pro. So just kind of go to town with that. Your second option would be to if you watch the clean and polish lesson, you can Z-remesh this, then subdivide it up enough to where you can have enough geometry to then hold the creases that you want. And then your third option is to retopologize this when you're all done, and you could actually, let me pull this up so I can draw on here. Like for this ear, for example, you can retopologize right along this edge, and then, you know, do some fancy polygon making, and then you could crease these edges right here. So that's the cleanest mesh you're gonna get, is a low resolution subdivided mesh. That is the cleanest mesh. Okay, so you can't get Sculptress Pro as clean, and you can't get Dynamesh as clean. You can only get a low mesh that's been subdivided to be super clean. That's the cleanest you'll get. So I can't iterate that enough. But all of this going from block out to either Sculptress or Dynamesh or Z-Remesher, I know it's super confusing, but all of those steps are just to get you to the final finish line, which is a low resolution mesh that has been subdivided. That's your goal. That's like the finish line goal. I want to get to there. Okay, but to get there, you kind of have to go through these steps to give yourself a guideline to follow, so you know what to do when it's time to retopologize and do that kind of stuff. So I hope that makes sense. And I've been meaning to make a new lesson on that, just saying, hey, this is where you're headed, you know, in order, you know, this, and these are all the things you need to do to get there, kind of a thing. I know that's kind of confusing, and I didn't even realize that myself. That I realized it myself when I was doing it, but I didn't realize that I needed to explain it that way, right? Because there's been so many pipeline iterations and changes to get there, but the end result has never changed. Okay, the subdivided low resolution mesh has never changed. It's just what path or what trail do you take to get there? That's changed. Like Sculptress Pro or Dynamesh or Z-Remesher, it's all these different tools and ways to get there. So does anybody have any questions about that?
Not about this.
Okay.
The person who modeled this is in
Oh,
tonight,
okay.
but they said could they send their model in, but I don't think we've got time to actually do that right now.
Yeah.
We have got one question which isn't connected to
Okay.
that.
Okay.
How would you go about baking something like a chainmail in marmoset? What I'm looking to get is a nice alpha from a bake that gives me a transparency map for the holes in the mail.
So, yeah, that's kind of a deeper question than I have time for, but I can kind of lightly brush over the high level of what I would do. But before I do that, let me just talk about this model really quick. A couple things, Xiao, that I would do is I would get rid of this line right here, just kind of blend that out a little bit more, and then just work on your transitions between objects. So this is another beginner kind of a beginner mistake that a lot of people do, is the transitions, they don't smooth them out enough and make them a clean transition from one object to another. I would do that with the ear. So the ear should have a clean transition into the head and not be such a sharp change unless it's called for in the concept. But this one, so you can see the transitions between all of these pieces are very, very sharp. So I would kind of reduce them down a little bit, or at least in areas like, for example, this forearm going into the bicep area. I would definitely smooth that out a little bit more, smooth out the difference between the hips and the torso and the legs. It's like, unless that's the style you're going for, I guess, but typically it's I didn't see did I see concept? I did. Okay, this guy, right? Yeah. So if you're looking at this guy's arm, there's no hard line in between his upper arm and his lower arm. It's very smooth, and you can use that as a guideline to tell you what to keep and what to get rid of. Even this front drawing here, it's just hinted at barely. It's just barely there, and his elbow is barely hinted at. So I would go in there and just smooth the out of it. There's my beep of the day. Okay, just smooth it out. Yeah, that's work those transitions. I think you'll be good to go.
There was no beep.
No beep?
No beep.
You can't hear that? Where's... Oh, you know what? Dang it. Okay, well, I kind of reset my Go XLR, so that's good to know. That sucks though. My comedic moment failed.
No one ever likes to see that.
I know. Fell flat. Okay. So, sorry, what was the question? Did I miss the question that you asked? The question that you asked right when I went back to that model, what was it?
The chainmail question.
Oh, chainmail. Thank you. Okay. So chainmail, basically you can bake a high resolution mesh that has holes in it to a low resolution mesh, and it will give you missing data in between those chain links, like the holes. It will either color it black or like the default normal map purple. In your normal maps, it'll just be flat. So you can essentially just sometimes some programs will let you bake alpha out, but that black you can select it and delete it as a PNG, or because alpha is just 100% black anyway. So in the map, if you have it 100% black, it will be clear as long as you make an alpha out of that, which you can. And it's a really big question that I would love to go into and like demonstrate it, but it's yeah, in the short amount of time we have, I can't really do that. But just kind of try baking it with holes in it to a low resolution mesh, see what you get, and see how you can use what it gives you to knock those holes out, because it's definitely a thing you can do, and it happens all the time. So hopefully that works. Oh, everybody heard it. Oh, Donna, you didn't hear it because you're on Discord. I'm sorry.
I miss out. I'm so upset.
Okay, well, that really confused me when you couldn't hear. I was like, well, that makes sense now. Okay, that makes sense now.
Have we got time for one more question, do you think?
Yes.
We've got 12 minutes. Okay. So Omar is asking, hi Shane and Donna. I wanted to ask about software differences. In some videos, Shane talks about Blender as a software used for modeling, but I know it can be used for texturing and sculpting as well. What would be the biggest advantage for using ZBrush against Blender when it comes to sculpting?
Okay, so before we get into this model, I can answer that question really quickly. So I have spent some time sculpting inside of Blender, and it is on its way to being a contender. And in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, it's not quite there yet. So the way the sculpt brushes feel, it doesn't feel quite as nice as ZBrush, just because it hasn't been out long enough or tuned well enough, or have given the feedback back to them well enough. But with Pablo DeBarro on the scene, doing tons and tons of edits and updates to Blender's sculpting side of things, he's made several adjustments and tuning that it's getting there very, very quickly, because Pablo himself is a successful sculptor in his own right, and he just does really, really cool stuff, you know, and it shows. And so does Yan from Yan Sculpts. He does really good sculpts in there, and so it's getting there. But ZBrush is at its core, that's what it does best. It's a digital sculpting software, and that's what it does. And nobody really comes close to being as good as ZBrush. But like I said, Blender is up and coming. It's a contender. But the rest of the software out there, like like VR, sculpting in VR, Oculus, Medium, and like 3D coat and all. I even have some on my iPad that have came out recently. One called Nomad and one called I can't recall the other name. But I mess with all of these to see if there's any up and coming contenders, and still nothing has really come close to what ZBrush can do yet. But as far as I'm concerned, Blender is nipping at their heels. They're very, very close, and they're getting close soon. But you're right, Blender does texturing really, really well, and ZBrush does not. ZBrush ends at painting basic colors on the surface with polypaint. That's where it ends. It does it okay, but if you're looking to get really serious and good about texturing, you would use Substance Painter. That's like the ZBrush of texturing, right? Substance Painter is the best when it comes to texturing. Blender does have some fantastic texturing tools in there, but again, it kind of falls short when it comes to certain things, where Substance is just layers and layers above it. So can you do it in Blender? Absolutely. Will it be as easy or as fast, or will you get the same results? Probably not, but it's still there and it's good. And that tends to be Blender for a lot of things, even animation or UVs or retopology. It's really, really good, but it's not like the retopology and UVs aren't quite as good as, say, 3D Coat or Maya. It's close. It's so close, but it's not quite, like I said, in my opinion. So, but it's free. It's free. And, learn it because it's free. And I think a lot of studios are adapting it because Maya is being greedy, like Autodesk is being greedy. So, and they're not updating their software as often as they should, and where Blender is getting updated like every day. So anyway, that's kind of my take on that whole thing. Okay, so let's talk about this last model before we move on to talking about ZBrush 2021. Okay, so this one is from, I'm trying to remember. Oh, and David, I'm gonna have to give you a rain check on yours. I want to give you just a personal video on that one on Skinny Girl, so I'll make sure I get that to you. Okay. Let's see. What were you gonna say? Something, Donna?
No, I hit my mic. Sorry.
Okay. Yep, I can hear your tick in and tick out. So I know when you're gonna say something. Okay. So for this one, now this is modeled. This is interesting. It's kind of a segue from me talking about Blender. This is a model of a model that was done by Ashley A Cubed. She's another Pixelogic streamer. She did the original of this for. You guys help me out. What's the name of the show? Anyway, it was like the only full-length feature film done in Blender, and it's on Netflix. You can watch it right now. And Ashley was one of the character artists on that show, and I believe she modeled the original of this. Next Gen. Thank you, Ian. Okay, so Next Gen. So this is the character from Next Gen, and this one was modeled by Ricardo. So hey, Ricardo, I know you're having a lot of questions about every single step of the way. My advice to you with this is try not to just every single time you're noodling with it, it feels like you want to ask if you're doing it right. Are you doing it right? Are you doing it right? Just kind of back off of wanting the advice so often and push yourself and look at both models and say, does this look like the model that I'm trying to model? And to me, I say you're getting close. Okay, this is getting a lot closer than you were, and so this goes for anybody who is getting stuck or hitting walls or like not knowing if what they're doing is what they should be doing. So you want to reach out and ask. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking, by the way. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it's just like I'm trying to draw some comparisons. I usually compare this to learning a musical instrument like a guitar or something like that. It'd be like playing a chord and then strumming it and saying, okay, did I do that right? Did I play the chord right? And the teacher's like, yeah, now practice and keep playing it and getting it better so it comes more natural to you. And then they play it again. How's that? Play it again. How's that? How's that? So it just kind of slows your learning process down substantially when you're feeling like you should continually ask rather than just continually practice. So push yourself as far as you can go without feeling like, hey, should I ask if this is going the right place? Now, and you should be able to just kind of feel when you should ask for advice and put your models on the forum and stuff like that. This is a tricky thing because I want you to ask for advice. I just don't want you to ask a ton, I guess, that if that makes sense. Okay. So try and push yourself and usually the best times to ask for advice is at the end of a block out, like block out your character, post it up on the forum or in Discord. Well, not in Discord, but Discord is more for if you're stuck with software issues, like technical issues and things like that. But before you post it just post it to the forum, your block out, okay? And then you'll hopefully get some feedback from other students. Maybe I'll give you some feedback, and then you can continue on with that and take it all the way to as far as you can get it. And then you just kind of, if you feel stuck or whatever, that's when you can post it again. Or if you feel like you're in the valley of the suck and you have no idea how to get out, right? You're just like, I don't know. This is how far I could take it. Can you guys help me see something I'm not seeing? That's the best time to ask for advice. Okay. So for this one, this is a really good time to ask right now with this. And what I was going to talk about were basically the lips feel a little bit, for lack of a better term, again, is kissy faced. That just means, or duck lipped a little bit. Okay. And what's giving it that look is the corners of the mouth aren't pushed into the head quite enough. Okay. So if you grab the head, and what I would do too at this point, I would Z-remesh it so you can edit it quicker. Okay, so let's duplicate this off, hide the original, and we'll Z-remesh it. So Z-remesh at 5, and make sure symmetry is on, and then go. All right. Any questions, Donna, right now?
There's one from Prakesh. He's saying, so since we use Sculptress Pro, is Z-Remesher and Dynamesh no longer needed?
No, they are needed, and I'm doing it right now. So once you get your Sculptress Pro to a point, oh goodness. Okay, I didn't realize these were all in the same subtool. Okay, so let me split hidden. Okay, that was another thing, Ricardo, that you asked. You merged all these tools together and then sent it to me and asked me if that was the correct thing to do. The answer is no. You can leave them all split into their own subtools. That's the way ZBrush likes it. That's the way ZBrush works. So keep everything split, and then save out your Z tool. That way it works better. Okay, so let's do a Z-remesher again, just with the head piece. Okay, so I'm thinking the next question for Z-remesher would be like, well, when do I use Z-remesher, and when do I use Dynamesh, and when do I use Sculptress Pro? So I can answer that. I'll try and answer it very quickly. So Dynamesh is, in my opinion, is now best used right before you're going to push your model to a printer. And the reason why is because Dynamesh is fantastic for getting rid of interior geometry. Okay, so that's when you merge all of your subtools together, hit Dynamesh, it will clear out any kind of interior anything, because you want your models to be watertight and solid when you send it to the 3D printer, unless you're going to be hollowing it out. But you want it to be solid, and Dynamesh is fantastic for that, okay? And what I would normally do before we had Sculptress Pro, I would use Dynamesh as a surface detail regulator, I guess. That's like whatever you want to call that. A surface detail regulator, meaning I can dial up and down the detail of the surface, this is kind of like the voxel remesher inside of Blender. If you guys are familiar with that, that's very much Dynamesh. Okay. And the problem with it is it gives you, it rebuilds your entire mesh every single time. So if you have these nice pinched edges, these nice creases and all that kind of stuff, it's going to get rid of it because it's going to rebuild the whole mesh. And Z-Remesher will do that as well. But that's why I no longer use Dynamesh in my particular pipeline until the very, very end now. Instead, I will use Sculptris Pro. And the reason I use Sculptris Pro is because I will never run out of geometry. I can also always increase the density in specific focused areas as I'm working. And it's really nice. I love it. And that's just like a dynamic topology inside of Blender, if you're familiar with that. So that's why I'm saying the Blender is nipping at the heels of ZBrush, because those two workflows are in there, hand in hand. They're same. Okay. Now, when do you use Z-Remesher? I will usually use it when I want to make large changes to the mesh, or else I want to clean up the surface and kind of rebuild the surface at a lower resolution because it's more manageable, particularly when I want to take it to pose or something like that, right? But I want to make some big changes in the mouth right now, and using Sculptris Pro, the version of it, it was just kind of dense and chunky, so it'd be a little more difficult to handle. Okay, so thanks, Ian. I need to just go in here and turn it off, but I'm trying to remember where it's at. Screensaver, off. Okay, there we go. Like, shut it. Okay. So now let's look at this mouth from the top and the bottom. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. So it's the mouth right here is following the curvature of, say, the forehead and not the mouth. So you have to think about your mouth wrapping around teeth, or the character's mouth wrapping around teeth. And for this character to have teeth, they'd have to be really wide, right? Feeling the whole mouth is just full of these huge teeth. So we just want to pull this in. And what I'll usually do to do that is I'll either look at it from the top or the bottom and grab the corner of the mouth and just kind of tap, slowly pull it back in space and just curve that mouth around to match, okay? And it'll start looking like this. And then you have to bring the divot that I made from the cheek. We need to clean that up now. We can use smooth and clean it up. And just kind of bring it in. And then we need to bring the cheeks in a little bit to match. And then the chin to compensate as well. As the chin wraps around your, I mean, you can feel it when you put your hand around your chin. You can feel that, like, I can't remember, I think I've talked about it in the anatomy section. But if you put your hand on your forehead and you hold your hand like this, that's my forehead. And if I put it around my chin, you can see it's not as tight, right? It's like, and if you put your hand around your jaw, you can't put it around your forehead. It just they're different. They're not the same arc or arch. So just bring that in a little bit and smooth it out. So Z-Remesher is really nice to give you a low resolution mesh that you can then manage and smooth out. It smooths much quicker. The lower the density that you have your mesh, the faster smooth is going to work. Okay, so, and then this neck transition, just kind of smooth it out and clean it up a little bit. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I would do, is just make her mouth curve a little bit more, and then it will look less kissy lipped, I guess. I don't know what else you'd call it. But as far as her face, like her face shape and structure is looking really close to that film, which is nice. And I do have to say, I can see why you said you were just doing it, and you said that modeling from a model is hard. I wouldn't say it's hard. I would say you shouldn't do it. And the reason why is because your model is always going to be compared to the original model, right? So if you're going to be putting it up in, say, ArtStation or something like that, it's like fan art. It's a model of a model. Like I say, don't ever model Wreck-It Ralph, or, you know, a character that's just been, or like Elsa or something, like from one of Disney's 3D films or Pixar's 3D films or something like that. you could totally do it if it's just for your personal gain and your personal, like, I'm going to see if I can model this model and hit it, but I wouldn't necessarily use it as a portfolio piece. That you can do it for fun because, hey, I love this model, I want to see if I can model it. That's awesome. But just to model it for a portfolio piece, I would not do that because it will always be compared to the original. And the original has been through such scrutiny through the chain of command at the different studios that I don't know that it's ever going to compare to that, right? So people are just going to look at it and it's never going to be as good, even as hard as you try. Well, I shouldn't say never. It most likely won't be as good. And if it is as good, people are going to mistake it for the original, and they're going to think that you worked on that when you didn't, and then you could possibly get called out for you know, licensing issues, you know. So I would just steer clear of modeling models. Okay, so all right. Yeah, I knew that, Ricardo. That's great. That's great. So I just wanted to reiterate why I wouldn't. But if you love it and it's fun and that's what you want to do, passion is number one. Okay, and whatever's going to keep you sculpting, that's what you want to do. Okay, just keep sculpting because it's therapeutic to sculpt. It's artistic, and you want to get lost in it. And if you're not doing something you're passionate about, that comes later when you actually have a job and freelance, is when somebody asks you to model something you don't want to, but you're getting paid for it. That's a whole different thing. But when you're doing it for personal reasons, then you want to look for something that you're passionate about, so you can take your passion and inject it into that sculpt. So yeah, it's just, yeah, just that's my bit of advice. But the eye shape on her is looking really, really nice, Ricardo, by the way. Right here. And then now, yeah, now the lips, you can see there's this, what I try and do with my sculpts with the mouth, and I talked about this in the anatomy section, is try and get a line coming from the eye, curling around and hitting that corner of the mouth like that. See that little kind of cheek line right there? And then you also want to make sure that the skin bit coming down off of the nose is coming off from the center of the nose, not the back of the nose. See the back of her nose? Here, let me, I had my ZBrush brush there, so it's kind of getting in the way. Let me do a new one. Okay. So, and I kind of you might have had this before, but I softened it out a little bit too much. But make sure this nose comes back so this is in the center. Right here, the center between here and here. So at least a bit of a depression or a pinch or something to signify that's how far back the nose wings go. Okay. All right. Are we good with that? We have 92 people on today.
We
That's
do
awesome.
have 92 people. They're waiting for the 2021 stuff, I think.
Okay, okay. It's 2:08. We better get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. All right. So, 2021. They Pixelogic invited me to beta test this, and of course I happily said yes. It was right when I was in the middle of a freelance job that I was doing, and I was in the middle of some other things. So it was kind of difficult, but it was fun at the same time. I wish I had been able to make more characters and play with it more, but my time was a bit limited. But what I did play with, it was really fun, and it's just cool that ZBrush has cloth in here now. And what's even cooler is it's easy to use, like really easy to use. It doesn't give as good of physical results as Marvelous Designer. If you guys are wondering, like, how does it compare to Marvelous Designer? I don't think I would put, just again, if you're going to be doing clothes and clothes for a living, you go to the software that is king of clothes, which is Marvelous Designer. Okay. So this is not that. This is, how can I stay inside of ZBrush and make cloth that's better than not having cloth at all, right? That's what this is. And then one thing I'm really super excited about is what they added to dynamic, and that is thickness. So now, you know how we've kind of gone to making our clothes just have single-sided. and then add the thickness later on. Well, that's even better now, because when we have dynamic turned on, it's just a preview of what that thickness is going to look like, and it's fantastic. You can use it for eyebrows and for eyelashes and for hair and for clothing and anything that has thickness to it. Okay, you can't vary up the thickness. I mean, you can make the whole thing thicker overall, but you can't go from thin to thick to thin again. And I think you can in Blender. There's a way to paint vertex mapping to say, because it's a skin modifier, and you can actually vary the thickness that way. But inside of ZBrush, this is what we get, and I love it. So no complaints there. All right, so I just released the user interface for 2021 today. You saw it in your email. There's a link. You have to be logged into the course to go get it, but there's a link to go get it inside the download section. It's and I showed it at the very beginning of this stream. You just go in there and just download and install it just like you would, and it comes with the brushes, the user interface, and the ruler file. So this ruler file, you can see that I adjust one thing slightly, and that is I move this sphere up and I shrunk it down to be more the size of a head, because I noticed a lot of you, including myself, would start with the sphere right in the middle and then start working down in space, right? And basically you would end up moving your character up in space to be above the floor plane, or you would just leave it as it is, you know, and not moving it. And it would, if you ever need to send your file off to, say, Blender, you will want your character's feet sitting on the floor, because that is where you're going to want your character to be when you render it out. There's going to be a floor and stuff like that. But particularly in this version of ZBrush, we now have a floor plane that the cloth will interact with. Okay, so let me change this sphere to a plane, and I'll show you exactly some of the other things that I've changed with this. Not very many. There's just a few. Okay, so I'm going to bring the gizmo up here, and I'm going to move the sphere even higher, and go to this gear and change it to a polyplane. Okay, so now this is a polyplane. It's really small. You can see it right there. And I'm going to say, go back to Gizmo 3D and scale this plane up in space. And then I'm going to turn it. It's kind of hard to see. Okay, now let me turn off the floor. Is there any questions before I get rocking on this?
There is one question.
Okay.
This is from Gianni. Is the new version of Retopo feature good enough compared to 3D Coat? I love the new Retopo function so much.
So that's an interesting question. Is it good enough to retopologize? Yes, it's better than anything they've had in there before. Is it as good as 3D Coat? No, it's not as good as 3D Coat, in my opinion. But will it get the job done? Yes, especially on smaller characters. Like some characters, it's not going to take you a whole bunch of retop work to do. And but it's good enough. It's good enough. You know, it's just not the biggest thing I'm missing. Okay, I'll just tell you the biggest thing that's missing from the retopology inside of here is holding down smooth to relax the geometry across the surface and even it out when you're in the middle of retopology. It does not have that, and that is like, besides doing basic retopology, that's the #1 tool that I use inside of 3D Coat, is to keep a hold of snapping, so it won't, if you try and smooth it down inside of ZBrush, it's going to suck into the surface of the object. It's not going to stick. It's not going to snap to the high resolution surface of the thing that you're trying to retopologize. So that's the biggest thing that it's missing. But as far as basic retopology, it's like I said, it's better than anything they've had before. So, yeah. Okay. So yeah. So my favorite still stands. 3D Coat's flag is still firmly pushed into the retopology world and UV world for that matter. Yeah, it's still my favorite. So, okay. Let's see. So see how I can't see what this plane looks like from the edge? Like as soon as it goes to here, it disappears and I can't see it. Well, if I want to see it from the edge, now what you can do is like what I was just talking about. You can add dynamic thickness, and it's super cool. If you go down to geometry and go to Dynamesh, there's now this thickness slider right here. See this thickness of 4? You can crank this up. I got to turn it on. It is on. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, this is Dynamesh. Hold on. Dynamic subdiv, not Dynamesh. That would help. It's funny because there's thickness inside of the Dynamesh too. Ben, yes, I have. I've played with it a little bit, and it's got some really cool features in there. They're just kind of a bit behind the ball when it comes to development speed and use, but I really want to give it a solid go. I just haven't had time to give it a solid go yet. Okay, so thickness slider right here. If I start cranking this up, you'll see that it's starting to add thickness across this edge. Okay, and you can see it says post subdiv. So if I turn that off, it's going to add that thickness before it gets dynamically subdivided. So you can say, I want to subdivide it before, or I can subdivide it after. If I do it after, then it's going to keep these really nice hard edges. But if I want a soft edged thing, I can turn that off and get a soft edged thing. That's a really cool way of getting it to be a hard edged thing before, with non-destructively, right? It's non-destructive. That means I can turn dynamic off and it goes back to being a plane again. So this is just a preview because it's dynamic subdivisions. And you can also, I'm going to turn off this, or turn this back on, this post subdiv, and I can change the segments. So see, I just changed it to have 3 subdivision levels instead of just 1. And I can make this thickness even bigger. And like I said, this is a preview. It's crazy. It's a preview. So it's super cool. Okay. So now what we can do is I'm going to make it fall on this ruler. Okay. So what I've added to the user interface is if you slide this shelf open, you can see that I've added this dynamics menu over here. This is a new menu they've added right here into 2021. And I've just mounted it over into this left shelf underneath the Z plugins. That's just so we can access it more. So you can just slide it open, leave it open, because I use it all the time when I'm doing cloth. So it just makes it easy access. Okay. Now what you can do is there's a handful of things that you can adjust. So I'm going to turn gravity on, and I'm going to turn on, this is a huge thing, is you'll want to click on collision volume. Now collision volume, this is one thing that ZBrush has that I think Marvelous Designer does not, is you can turn everything into your scene into a collision volume. So basically you can just let your cloth float and droop over your entire scene if you want. If you have a big huge tarp and you just want to cover it up, like maybe you want to reveal a sculpture that way, you just want to cover it with a big giant tarp, you can. And all you have to do, and it's very, very fast at calculating, all you have to do is click on this collision volume and it's calculated. And then you can just run the simulation. Whoop, it's too fast. My gravity strength is too fast. So let me undo that. I'm going to turn this down to like 0.5 or something. And I need to increase the density of this plane. Okay, and I'm going to turn this thickness down because it looks like it's made of not cloth anymore. So, and you can see that because it's not as dense, so this is how dense it is, it's not calculating as well as it could. So I'm going to actually undo this. Let's shrink the thickness down now. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I want to subdivide it for real. So I'm going to hit Control D to subdivide it once, and then get rid of the lower subdivision level that I just added. So now this is our new cloth, and it's more dense. So this is how dense it is right now. And I can do it again one more time. Delete lower, and this is probably a better density, and then add the dynamic subdiv back to that. Now if I hit recalc, see this recalculate right here, it's going to have a better simulation. So I can turn that gravity up a little bit more so it's not so painfully slow. And then when it hits, it'll just have a better result. See that? Ooh, it's kind of fun to watch. Yeah.
Corinne has got a question for what
Corinne.
you're doing right now. Yay. Is there a way to reset the cloth other than hitting undo?
Not that I know of. Yeah, I wish there was. I mean, but you can like, now that it's done like this, you can move it and then recalculate. And then you can also, it works with morph targets. So you can store a morph target. So it'll kind of try and hold this shape now. And then I can run it again. And then it's going to hit again and try and hold that shape. Because say if you like those wrinkles, it's going to try and hold those wrinkles. But as you can tell, it's not perfect. It's not holding on to this. And the ruler is not that dense either as far as mesh goes. So it's clipping through here a little bit because it's not as dense. But you can come through here and re-edit things like that. So you can see that it makes pretty good looking cloth, right? And I can undo this. I'm going to go back up to where it's like this. And one thing you can do is influence where it falls from. So I could start to tug on this one end and then run the simulation. Whoops, I'm trying to remember how they did that. Let me recalc it. Maybe that's liquefy. Yeah, that's liquefy. So liquefy, let me turn the gravity up. That's painfully slow. There it goes. See that? It'll just kind of drag down from the spot that you start it from. See that? It's just kind of, it's really interesting the way it works. And you can pull one up too. And just wherever it's like offset, wherever it's different than the rest of the plane, it's going to calculate that in a little different way. And then what's interesting too is you can set the direction of the gravity to be whatever you want. It doesn't always have to be down towards the ground, right? So if I want it to fall slightly, say in this direction, okay? And it's based off the camera, wherever your camera's at the time. So I want to make it fall down in this direction. I can do set direction right here, then run the simulation. Oh, I got to turn that down. Let me turn liquefy off and set the strength back down. Recalc this. There we go. See how it's falling now towards the grav. Even if I should turn it now like this. So it'll look, see how it's falling in kind of this diagonal direction instead of straight down. And that is really cool if you ever want to, so say for my wizard, I think you guys have seen my wizard. I'll pull it up really quick. Let me see where I put it. There we go. Is it here? I'm trying to remember. So with the wizard, yeah, so you can see that like these bits of cloth, I made the gravity go behind him in that direction. So then the gravity would pull it back as if it was getting blown by wind rather than getting pulled down towards the ground. So that's a really cool thing you can use is set direction. And then what this is one of the things that Pablo showed me, not Pablo DeBarro, the other Pablo, the streamer on Pixelogic. So he basically showed me how to do these straps and to get these straps to work, because I was really frustrated at first. I was struggling with this cloth because I wanted this cloth to get bunched up by this belt. You can kind of see it's not really working right here, but I wanted to wrap this belt around him and then make the cloth interact with that belt, but it just doesn't act that way, right? You need to mask that area. So masking works with cloth. It's pretty cool. So if you go to this cloth, let me see. I think I've already added thickness to it. I have. Let me see this robe. Okay, I'm just gonna start over with this robe again so I can kind of show you what I can do with it. Oh yeah, so this is the robe that I started with. See how it's just this really simple thing with a hood, and it had dynamic thickness on it. And then I ran the simulation on his T-pose, and the whole thing just kind of drooped and hung over him. And then there are these brushes that will allow you to drag different pieces and parts as if they were cloth. Now, what I was doing was I was trying, so I'm going to B, C, and then this cloth move brush, and you can essentially just drag anything and turn it into cloth. Turn off symmetry on here, and I'm going to hide. Delete higher, and then I'm just going to delete the interior of this. One second. Okay. I'm going to hide this edge. There we go. Okay, so now I can delete hidden. So now this is just a single-sided surface, the whole thing. And I can just grab anything, but you'll notice, see how it kind of went pink like that? That's why you store a morph target. So if I delete it, now it won't do that. Well, it shouldn't. Oh, goodness. I guess it's not perfect. I'm trying to remember why it's doing that. I'm not completely. Oh, collision volume. That's why. I turned collision volume off and now it's not doing it. Okay. So this is like, it's like another move brush. But now when you squish it together, it makes it wrinkle like cloth. And that's super cool. Right? So that way you can wrinkle up, like say if you wanted to do your armpit cloth, right? That's super cool. And the wrinkles of your cloth like up your sleeve. So basically if you wanted to get the wrinkles that happen around the elbow and that kind of thing, what you want to do is what Michael Pavlovich was saying earlier today, is what you want to do is get your character in a nice pose first, because the pose is going to dictate how your cloth wrinkles are going to happen, right? So you want to then pose your cloth around the bendy parts and get them kind of tucked in there and that kind of stuff. But let me see if I have Naked Wizard guy that I can run the simulation on. Hide this stuff. So I'm going to hide the belt and all the different parts, because like I said, it won't react to the belt, but it'll react to the body. Yeah, you can totally wrinkle skin for sure. You can totally wrinkle skin. Here, let me go to an earlier version of him. Let me see if I can do this. Look at that body. It's really funny. I don't think I have the cloth built yet. Let me see. Here we go. So this is, and I have live Boolean eyes on here, but I have this wrinkled. I was doing some tests, and this was a test where I was trying to get the belt or some object in here to act as a collision volume to make the cloth kind of roll and pinch on here and make it look right. But I could not do it until Pablo said, okay, what you got to do is mask that area off. And I'll show you. I'm going to turn live Boolean back off. So basically you can mask it like this, and that can be the belt area. And then what you can do is you can grab a cloth inflate. There's like this, there's all these, you should try all of these cloth brushes. They're really cool. There's cloth pull, slide, pinch, nudge, all these things. But there's this, yeah, cloth fold, anything that's under C, but this cloth inflate, and you can turn down the intensity quite a bit and just kind of run it. Maybe not that much. And just run it over that section and it'll inflate, but it's a different inflate. It's not your regular inflate. It acts differently. And you can get it to inflate around the belt that way. Weird, because it's almost acting like it's alive. Okay, so if I use, I like the cloth move the most. Like I said, it wrinkles like that. See how it's wrinkling? Yeah, it's really fun because it moves just weird. It's got this weirdness. Okay, so now that I have that, what I can do is I'm going to recalculate the surface. Let me see if it's got, yeah, it's got dynamic turned on. So this is just a single-sided mesh with dynamic on, right? And when I run this with gravity turned on, it should like slowly sink and droop over his body like this. And it's fun to watch because watch his hood. And I can also do, see this, there's self-collision. See how it says self-collision 0? And you also have simulation iterations. And you can hold down control on any of these controls and it'll explain exactly what it does. So here's your, how much surface is kept intact. That'll be how strong your simulation is. And then the firmness is like, is it silk or is it leather? That kind of thing. And then I'm going to show you on masked here in a moment. Not quite yet. That's how I made the straps. But there's this self collision and floor collision. So you can turn floor collision on. You can see that it's starting to collide with the floor here. So I'm going to continue to run the simulation and let it go down. And you can see it just kind of getting pulled off of the back of his head. And you can see it's also keeping that mask intact, almost like it's a belt, and holding the robe up, right? So it's not letting it droop too much, but it's still going slowly, but going. And I can stop the simulation anytime by clicking in here, and I can turn up the gravity and run it again to go even faster. And then if I want to, say I'm happy with the way this is looking down here, basically what I can do is just mask this portion off and say, okay, don't affect this area anymore. I'm done with running the simulation on this section. Okay, then I can run it again, just on the hood, and it'll keep going on the hood. See that? And if I say I want this to fall off his head, so whoops, it's saving it. And I can pull this back and smooth it out. Come on, smooth. And then run it again. See that? And it'll droop and it'll fall off the back of his head just like a hood would. And stop it. See? Kind of a wide hood, but yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, it's looking like it works. Were you going to say something, Donna?
We have a couple of questions
Okay.
so far. First one from Ian. I have a low poly shirt that is like 4,000, and when I turn on micro poly and pick the denim pattern, but
Yep.
it slows down my machine because it is like 30 million polys now. Am I prepping the model wrong? It's a single-sided shirt, and I am confused why it's so much, and it won't let me reconstruct.
So yes, it's going to be a huge tax, a huge burden on your machine to do micropoly. It shouldn't be because it's instancing now. So it's like a copy of a copy of a copy all over your shirt. What he's talking about is the micropolys. I'll show you that. It's also under dynamic, right here. So if I turn micropoly on, you can see it'll pop up this menu, okay? And you can pick any of these things here. And what it's going to do is it's going to populate this mesh over the entire mesh. And it'll kind of string it together. So I can do this chainmail link. And it's going to string this whole thing together. And it's going to replace, yeah, as you can see, it's incredibly dense. But it brings my machine, like I said, I have a pretty beefy machine, and it brings it to its knees, right? But it's super cool. Like, how cool is that? So then you can come in here and you can change the scale, and you can make the scale like pretty large or pretty small, and it's going to change it. Let me see if I can get it. I want to get it larger, not smaller. Can't remember. There it goes. That's bigger. So the larger scale, it'll move less. But you can mess with these settings. But yeah, for the most part, it's because it's basically drawing that many million polys in there for, it's pretty dense. You can choose one of the less dense ones. Here, let me just try maybe this ring. You can see the nude wizard underneath. Oh goodness. What is this one? And yep, you can align it all together. This align will actually, it will make it all go in the same direction and weld it. So it's welding it, but it's just showing you a preview of what it's going to look like. So yes, it's going to slow it down for sure. Yep, it's going to catch a cold. And you can make your own custom versions of these and try to use those in there as well. But anyway, this is a lot of fun. And I did this on the other version of the wizard, the one with the straps flying back. Let's see. This one? It's not this one. This one. This one. So these straps, I baked it down. There you go. It looks like Moses. So this strap, and I'll show you how I did it. But I baked this strap down. So basically made it real after I did it. So now it's much easier on my machine, right? It's much quicker. But while it's being while you're doing it, it's going to be super slow. It just, yeah, it's slow for me. And like I said, I have a pretty beefy card. So anyway, I want to show you how I did the straps. Let's see. Yeah, is there a question?
There are quite a few questions,
Quite
actually.
a few. Okay.
Creative Ape was saying while you were running the simulation, is it recording?
Is it recording?
Yeah.
I've heard that it is, but I think you have to turn recording on. Like if it's, are you wanting to do an animation of some sort, or I'm not sure exactly, but you might have to go to movie and then hit record, because I don't think it isn't always recording, but you can turn record on and it will record your steps as you select different types of surface macro. I believe it does, but I don't think it's always recording that way. So okay, so I hope that answers your question. Yep.
Next question is from Michael. I know the cloth stuff is super cool, but how much do you see yourself using it for super stylized models, where every fold or crease is very purposeful?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I struggled with that with this guy. I'm like, what could I do that actually has cloth that I'll use? Because honestly, to tell you the truth, this cloth is not designed, it is simulated. And these are kind of designed as far as how I pulled them back into space. But you're right, I would most likely hand sculpt it before I would use the simulation on it. But what you could do with the simulation is give yourself some clothing inspiration, or more wrinkle inspiration. So if you're struggling with, where would wrinkles happen as these pants go into this boot, and you could set up a simulation, run it on that section, and let it roll and see where the wrinkles start to happen. You're like, oh, okay, now I have a map or a guideline where I want to continue to sculpt the wrinkles in. So I see myself using this more as a guide rather than an actual, what Pixelogic wants me to use it for, which is, cloth simulation. This is more for realistic characters for sure. But it does have its place, and I can definitely see myself using it in certain instances. But for example, like this beard, I was like, hey, I want to run this on the beard and see what happens, or on some hair and see what happens. And it just, stylized characters need too much style, I guess, because the beard just collapsed on itself, and it wouldn't do, even if I set the gravity, it wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. So I ended up just using the Move Elastic brush and doing it myself. you know? So it's not, yeah. But let me show you this one thing, because Paul DC, he was also part of the beta, and he used these on one of his stylized characters in kind of a next level of detail way, as far as stylized goes. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this next bit. And you guys might see this and go, ooh, that's cool. Okay, so I'm going to take this strap and just replace it with a plane. So I'm going to grab the gizmo and reset it, go to this and click on polyframe. So that's going to replace that strap with this polyframe. And then we're going to look at the density here, and we're going to divide it up by, say, 30, trying to do 30, well, 34, sure, whatever. And like 34 in this direction. Well, maybe less, maybe 16, because I'm going to shrink it. Okay, I'm going to go back to Gizmo 3D and scale it down in this direction. And you know what? I think what I'm going to do is just Z-remesh this. I want square polys on this guy. So let's Z-remesh that. There we go. Because it just behaves better when you have square, even polys like this, okay? So basically what you're going to do with this guy, and this is a lot of fun, is I'm going to put this plane in front of the wizard, kind of where I want it to be to start with. I'll put it on an angle even. Let's move it back in space so it's close to him. Okay, not that close. Okay. So yeah, Overton, I didn't fix it. I talked a lot about the head and the neck and all that kind of stuff, which is really great. But I talked about how the rear end now needs to be adjusted a bit. So because it's, like I said, it's the tale of two pelvises. It's almost like he's got two pelvises in there. So if you go and watch the replay back, it should be up right after this is done. You can go watch it back and watch that section. So, okay. I thought he was unfixable. No, I kind of did a draw over and suggested how you could fix it. So you should be able to. Okay, so with this one, this is just a strap of cloth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to recalculate everything in the scene so it gives it a brand new collision volume. And it's taken forever because I think it's calculating that other strap that has all the micro mesh, the nano mesh. I hope I didn't close. Okay, I didn't. Okay. It's still pretty quick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off this little tip right here, but I'm going to invert it by holding Alt down, and that's going to mask off the rest. Okay. I'm going to turn gravity off, and I'm going to turn on masked on. This is very, very important for this bit. Okay. Now, there's this thing that I didn't know existed until Pablo showed me. And it's called transpose cloth. So it's like the gizmo, but it's a special gizmo. I had no idea it existed. And he's like, yeah, just use this. It'll change your world. So it's BT transpose cloth. It's right here. So BTC is the code for that one, BTC. Okay. And I'm going to move this gizmo up to here. And now watch what happens. Look at this. It's like it's like this weird cloth thing now. Isn't that awesome? It's crazy. And then you can you can overlap it on itself. It kind of becomes taffy. So what I did with this wizard was I kind of pulled it back into space and made it overlap itself. And then it also collides with whatever you're like laying it over like that, right? So it's like this gummy taffy stuff. It's super cool. So and then you can adjust the firmness of it. So you can turn that down, or you can turn it up. Let's turn it up. Now it'll pull like a curve brush. See how it's thicker now? Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you can just come in and clean it up. But you can turn down the strength. And that tends to make it drag along a little bit. Look, it's even hitting this sleeve right here. But you can drag this. And then you can come over here and drag it again. and just kind of pull it around itself in space. And then you can twist it, pull it some more, put it back on itself. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with it. It's pretty crazy, right? Yeah, pretty crazy. So that is how I created the straps that go up and around his shoulders. So I would just bring it up and around. It's super tricky to get correct. And then you can just blow it in the wind. And then you can grab this other end and do the same thing, and you can just do it in little bits. So, you know, like those like Darth Maul's twirly bits that Matt Thorpe made. You could totally grab, you know, model out a single-sided like piece of cloth that's hanging out from underneath his belt, and just turn it into a piece of cloth and do this with it, and then be able to turn it and mask it. So you can mask off this end, center the gizmo and unmasked, and then just kind of turn it like this, and see how it turns nicely. It does crinkle a little bit, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And you can even scale it too. Well, not as much, because it looks like it's only scaling the unmasked part, but can you tie it in a knot? Can you tie it in a bow? I don't know. I bet you could if you tried hard enough. I bet you totally could. It's like a challenge now. But I'm not gonna make you watch me try and tie it in a bow. But I'm totally sure you could. And you could, I bet you could even braid, like literally braid hair with it if you had some thick pieces, and you could literally braid hair, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then there's also this allow shrink and allow expand. So when you turn that on and you hit expand, it's going to expand it when you move it. Look at it, see that? It's like, and I don't know, there's certain instances when you would want this, and you could also do it in well, I'll show you an instance where you would want to do that. Okay, so we have this awesome wizard body. Okay, so we got this fantastic wizard body, the best wizard you've seen, and he's got a hat on and everything, like Merlin. So and what I'm gonna do is Joseph made a whole bunch of spotlight images to kind of mimic Marvelous's patterns a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna show you this one last thing. This is the last thing. I'll show you some retopo here too, but I want to show you this bit. So if you open up your light box and you go to Spotlight, there are these two new pieces here. Okay, and this is 128 cloth and this is 256 cloth. That's just the resolution that they're made at. I'm going to double click this, and you can see it loads them all up into here, and you can see they're all kind of looking like clothing. And you can just go and open up Spotlight and grab one of these. So I could have made the robe this way and used kind of this dress piece and done it this way. But I'm going to give him a shirt. Let's give him a shirt. And I'm going to click on this and bring it over here and zoom it up. How are we doing on questions so far, Donna?
We've got quite a few questions actually.
Okay.
Let me see. Amy asked, are all those dynamic simulations graphics heavy? Marvelous was pretty rough on my computer.
No, not as bad as Marvelous, because Marvelous is a full simulator and it's like running it all the time, and so it's pinging your CPU really heavily, whereas ZBrush's simulation is only running when you hit this button, or it's running when you're moving something with that brush, with a cloth brush. That's the only time it really turns anything into the cloth simulation, is when you're saying, okay, run it now, and then stop. Okay, and then so while you're running the simulation, you're only doing that thing, and so it shouldn't be too heavy. Or like I said, you're moving the cloth brush around, and that's when it'll do it. Sometimes that'll slow it down. I think out of this build, the biggest slowdown is what Ian pointed out, which is the macro mesh. That's the biggest slowdown of this new build. So I'm going to take these arms and just kind of move them down to match the shirt a bit. So let's grab this. Whoa, I still have transposed cloth turned on. So BTG, okay, this one's normal. All right, goodness sakes. That was fun. Okay, so I'm just gonna, it's still doing it. Still transposed cloth. BT, this one. Okay, there we go. Okay, go ahead with another question if you want.
Okay, Winston asks, let's say you were going to retopologize your sirloin head again.
Yep.
Do you think reshaping and snapping a pre-existing head would be so much easier now?
Yes, I want to try this because I saw somebody do it and they essentially took it reminds me of Face Off. You know that movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage where they're like trading faces. But taking face geometry, okay, imagine this with me. I can't show you because I don't have a demo set up, but imagine, if you will, face geometry like as if it's unwrapped, like a UV unwrapped face geometry shell, okay? And you stick it over in front of someone's face like a wet towel or something, right? And then you run the cloth simulator so it falls onto the face in that direction and just kind of wraps on the head. Just kind of goes, you know, and wraps on the face like a pie or something. It actually worked. I think it could have been Michael Pavlovich that tried this, but it kind of worked as far as like getting the face geometry. It didn't line up with the eyes and all that kind of stuff, obviously, but it got it to snapped and around the face as it were, and then he was able to go manipulate it and snap it to the head and move everything around. So yeah, your face off. That's right. I forgot about that. So anyway, yeah. So that thing is kind of super unique and interesting. But the snapping, the point snap and the edge snap are a bit limited when it comes to what you think it does versus what it really does. It's just it's not quite there, and don't, you know, but it's close. It'll get you close enough that you can then get in there and manipulate it and have fun with it. So anyway, yeah, it makes me want to watch that movie again. Okay, so go ahead.
Last question from
Okay.
Mike. If you let it simulate a bit too much, is there a way to come back a few frames earlier? Do you have to redo the whole sim and stop it? Stop it? I have no idea what
Yeah,
that...
yeah.
Oh, earlier. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I think he's just saying, yeah, can you roll it back like a couple frames? I'm not sure. Let's try it. Okay, so this is using Spotlight to make a shirt. Okay, so I picked the shirt, and if you want to try a different outfit, let's say, you can click on this and see this little quick select. You can make sure that is selected, and then you can change it out for like one of these other ones, like a dress or something, right? That's a nice one. So I'm gonna go to what shirt did I have? This one. Okay, so it looks like a triple XL for him, but we're gonna put this shirt on him, and basically when you're ready, you click on this camera icon called Snapshot, and it's basically gonna make a new piece of geometry, like so. Okay, you can see it here. And the reason why it was red and white, the coloring, because the coloring will then make polygroups, and it will make polygroups where there are holes in the shirt. So down here on the bottom, on the sleeves, on the neck, you can see, I don't know why it has this extra pink one through here, but yeah, it says jammy shirt. Okay. Oh, you can store the simulation in layers and then load it into a timeline. That's interesting. Yeah, we could try that. Okay, so I'm gonna hide. I isolated the shirt and I hid the green poly group, and then I'm gonna go to delete hidden. Okay, so I'll turn transparency off. So now we have this shirt, And I'm going to move it back in space so it's around him better. Okay, so now we have the sleeve. This is a lot like stitching inside of Marvelous Designer when you stitch a front to the back like this. Okay, it's just kind of a shorter way of doing that. Okay, yeah, it totally looks like a sponge. Now what you want to do is turn gravity off, turn contract on to Z. Okay, we can turn floor collision off, we can turn on mast off, and let's recalculate the collision volume. Okay, and our resolution is 2048. And then if we run the simulation, it's going to shrink up against him. I don't know why it's going so slow. Hold on a second. Let me do that again. Something's not quite right. Let's try this. I just turned the firmness down. Okay, so it's not, it's clipping through here because it's a single-sided, or it's a single mesh. So I'm gonna get it a little closer here. Maybe not so thick. It's having to travel a long distance before it actually collides with him. Okay, let's try this again. All right, let's do recalculate. You can also store morph target, but let's run it now. One more time. There it goes, that's better. See, now you're getting the armpit wrinkles, and it's getting there. I can stop it. So that's kind of what it does. And then I can go in here and like edit. So see how this is kind of a crappy armpit now? You can bring it up in there. You can smooth out these edges where the seams are. So just kind of, and honestly, I don't know what, okay, this is my struggle. I don't know why you would do this instead of, well, I kind of do. Like if you're doing a dress or something that spanned between two legs and you wanted to get that, some wrinkles and stuff happening. But you would, you know, I just don't know if it would be worth it to go through this versus doing a mask extract or a retopologized extract or something like that, right? Unless, I guess it could be me not knowing the system well enough to get the results I'm looking for. Yeah, he's too sexy for his shirt. You can just keep running the simulation even more. And you can also do, you can turn down the contract amount. And I'm trying to remember there's a way to get it to be a little closer to the body too. But anyway, that's kind of how that works. And I think it even comes with a version, like a project where you can test it out. Maybe not. It looks like they got rid of it. They had one in beta that was a female that had a dress that you could snap the dress around her. But I'm going to load up some of these scenes really quick, because these are kind of fun to play with. And it'll give you these instructions. So it says press collision volume or recalc on the dynamics menu. Press BCK to select the cloth hook brush, and then turn off on brushed in the dynamics menu, and then set the brush size to about 300, and then click here and drag it through the hole, right? So basically what we're going to do is, and as soon as you click on this, the instructions go away. So I'm going to snag them like this. Take it off screen. So basically you can, so you press the recalc or collision volume to set it up. Make sure that I have the cloth selected. Yep. And then BCK for the cloth hook brush. This is like snake hook, but it has cloth dynamics hooked to it. And then you turn off on brushed. Oh, right there, on brushed. Turn it off. Interesting, it was off. All right. Set it to 300 and there we go. Ooh, yep. Gotta let it calculate. I did it too fast. And you can continue to kind of pull it through. And then it kind of settles, but you can see kind of how that works. It's fun. Does some crazy stuff. I feel like I should be playing that snake snake charm song. That's pretty crazy. Ooh. Anyway, you can have fun playing with this. Go ahead, Donna.
Tim Dan has asked a question. If
Uh-huh.
you make a mask that's not 100% black, will
Yes.
it sim that part of the mesh less? So maybe create seams for the shoulders, etc.
So here we go. This is what happens. I just made a mask up top here. I think it only affects 100% or not. So I don't think it affects down across a blurred mask, but we're going to try it. So if I turn on gravity, I'm turning off oh, that's probably why it was behaving weird, because I had contract turned on. Okay, so I'm going to run the simulation and see it's just going to kind of droop from here. Let's turn the gravity strength up higher. So masking does work with it. See that? It's just kind of drooping from that masked point. And then until it hits the floor. Oh, floor collision is turned off. Turn that on. There it goes. And it's super stretchy. The firmness is, let me undo this. Let's turn the firmness up to 4. There we go. So it depends on the firmness. It depends on the strength. But you can see how it just kind of, it makes it weird if it's, if it has a masking that's faded off like that. So let me see. There's another one. There's this sim gravity you can try. So you can turn on collision and then self collision to 4 and then run the simulation. Okay, so this self collision is let me recalculate this collision volume. Okay, and then we'll run it. And then this is just going to kind of hit this and go down. You know, it works pretty well. So somebody was asking, yeah, nope, it doesn't keep all the history of the whole thing. It's just either this or this. So there's not anything in between. So you'd have to record it like in an animation and stick it on a timeline in order to roll it back through a couple keys. Yep. But yeah, that'd be awesome if it, that would add up your history super fast though. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me show you really quickly 2 things that they added before we go here. Two things they added to the Z modeler brush. Okay, so I'm going to click on this sphere right here. We're going to retop it really quick. I'm just going to draw a square with the topology brush, just to make a square, a quad. Okay, okay, and then split unmasked points. Go ahead.
Ian is asking if you've tried to use layers for that.
I haven't yet. Not yet. It'd be fun to try though. Okay, so so we have this square selected here, and we can just go to our Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, and hit extrude. Let's see, extrude edge, and then let's see. Come on. Why aren't you doing it? Am I not on the right thing? Where did it go? Oh, that's why. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, there it is. So they've added the snapping. I'm trying to remember where it is. It's been a minute. Good move. Okay. There we go. And you got to turn on snapping so it works. Modifier straight. Oh my goodness. I didn't spend too much time doing this yet. So I can't remember where to turn snapping on. Maybe you guys can. Have you guys messed with it? Oh, the snap is in vertex? Vertex. Oh, you know what? They added it mid beta. Hold on a second. Snap. Because when I was playing with it, the vertices didn't snap. Only the edges did. It's extrude, then and then snapping. Under the normal edge extrude. Under this one, edge. Smart attraction. Is it this? Snap to surface. There it is. Okay. Ta-da. Thanks, guys. But it's not doing it, so I don't know what's going on with it. It keeps going back to, I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Then it's in the bottom settings, down in the third block. Okay, I'll have to figure that out, and I'll make a lesson on it and figure out how to do it. But so yeah, it's in the Z modeler, and basically it'll snap as you go across, and then you can grab the verts and move them around on the snap surface. But if I could figure that out, I'd be dangerous. I don't know why I hit Control Z, and you can see the face in there, but I can't grab it. You have to do it in extrude in vertex. Maybe because of masking. Okay. Yeah, my demo is failing. In here? Okay, hold on. I'm just going to try it one more time. Not giving up just yet. So it's in vertex, extrude, point. Or is it in edge? Regular extrude, right? This one, and then snap edges, snap to surface. Okay, let me make sure we have a. You won't do it. Yeah, Joaquin, sorry. I'm just wrapping it up just now. I'm just futzing around with this this thing that I can't get to work. So I'll figure out how to get it to work, and then I'll post a lesson up on in the forum or something. Okay. Anyway, that was a total blunder, but hey, try unmasking the ball. I don't think it's masked. Maybe there's too many showing. I don't know. Maybe it has to be above it. Let's do this one. Okay, that's not masked. I don't know. Anyway, I won't make you guys watch me struggle with this. So any word on Maverick? Yeah, I'll talk about Maverick next time too, because I'm still learning Maverick. But that wizard was rendered in Maverick, and basically Maverick is a cheaper version of Keyshot, and but it's a little easier to use because it comes with all these scenes pre-set up, pre-lit, and all you have to do is stick your model in there and hit go almost, and it's nice. Oh my goodness, it's nice. So there's yeah, Maverick is it's still kind of expensive, but it's cheaper than Keyshot. So but we'll talk about that next time. So anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. Is there any last questions I missed, Donna?
There is just one from Michael. What's the screen grab program you're using?
Oh, this is just comes with Windows. It's called Snip and Sketch. So this is just built in with Windows, and so that's the one. It's pretty nice. Yep. So anyway, yeah, it's built in. It's really nice. Anyway, all right. Thanks everybody. Take care, and thanks for hanging out with me. We had a record showing, which is awesome. That means you're excited to get sculpting. I can't wait to see what you guys continue to create and post in the forum. And I will see you all in a couple weeks. All right, or on the stream on Monday. I'll be streaming again on Monday. So, all right, guys. Thank you and take care. and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. All right. Cheers. We'll see you. Thanks, Donna.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.